Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again. This week's edition of the Duval Dive coming at you. Listen, honor, joy, and privilege to be with you all once again. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game, here to bring some gospel to the Duval devout as we do every week. You got a lot of stuff, fun stuff here on this week's edition. But listen, folks, of course I got to do it. The man who's been on the ground at OTAs. I'm going to be in minicamp on Monday. So it's not like he'll be by himself on Monday. I'll actually be able to pull my weight. But let me bring in my personal champion, Travis. What's going on, my man? Welcome in. Travis, how's the Big Cat Country?
Hey, man, I'm doing well, brother. What's going on?
Hey, listen, it's a quality weekend. It's a quality Friday getting to talk to you. Of course, if you're watching the streams live, thank you very much for doing that. Please observe the additional Twitch stream action by way of Travis D. Holmes. Check that out too if you happen to be looking. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, man, listen, but of course, it's that off-season time, and it's allegedly we call it off-season. Like, for those that actually cover football, NFL proper, there is no such thing as an off-season. We're almost there for college football thanks to realignment and stuff, but the lack of off-season means Travis has been just hella busy. I'll say it. I'll go full youth. Hella busy looking at things from OTAs, dropping news and reports coming out of camp for Big Cat Country. Bing! I don't know what your latest article is at the moment because I'm not sure if you dropped something since the last saw. So I'm even going to guess what the latest thing is. But OTAs, man, tell us your take. I saw a little bit on Twitter you were talking about it, but what more in depth can you offer here?
Well, I mean, if we're going to go back to OTAs, OTAs wrapped up this week, obviously, and if you've been paying attention to Big Cat Country, thank you. If you haven't, shame on you. Save it as a favorite. Let's get on it. But
well, if you haven't, get a hold of your life.
Yes. I don't know what your priorities are. But yeah,
hopefully
overall,
Jaguar report. That's an option we'll accept.
Everybody loves a quarterback. Everybody loves a backup quarterback. So this has been the redemption arc of a Mr. Mac Jones. For those of you who haven't seen it, Demetrius Harvey of Jacksonville, was it Jacksonville.com?
That's the big D, of course.
Yeah. He was able to catch Mac Jones having a little fun in the ball protection drill with his dance and everything afterwards. I was able to catch Trevor Lawrence doing the same drill, giving them the Heisman pose. And in the background, Matt Jones is screaming like a diseased goat. It was hilarious. Just in case you haven't heard either of these or seen either of these, take a look at the article on bigcatcountry.com. Double bing. But also, more importantly, everyone loves a quarterback because these guys have actually had a very sharp camp overall. I've only seen a few interceptions. One was by Christian Braswell on CJ Beathard, and the other one was the one that was heard around Duval County, the Jarian Jones interception in day seven's practice, and that was from Mac Jones. Though it was more of an errant pass, but honestly, it was an errant pass not because of a bad throw. It was an errant pass because Jarian basically got inside leverage on the receiver, and it was so bad where he ran the route for the receiver that the receiver just kind of stopped on the play, and it just became an interception. Like he just took inside leverage, and it was a wrap. But Jarian has stacked 3 productive days of OTAs in a row to the point where he ends it on a high note with the interception, multiple pass breakups, great coverage in day 7, and that kind of gives him the headline profile. So that's why you've seen all the articles about Jarian Jones, is because he hasn't had a bad practice and he's been balling.
So I need to take a minute. First of all, it's all great news. We both felt good about Jarian Jones, and it's always good to be justified, especially you, the resident defensive back, seeing another corner succeed and doing it well for your team. I know you're just a little bit excited, and it's okay. But listen, I got to throw shouts to the comment here from the Huddle Up podcast. The backup QB is the most popular player in the NFL fan base. And then you're talking about hitting a high note. Matt Jones acting a fool, and that's okay. But I come up with an excellent Cisco parody for please don't throw it long, or you can't throw it long. And then I'm too white. What's up, Travis? Come on. Let's have that same energy for Mac Jones looking just a little goofy, like a
no, brother. The only again, this is something I actually said earlier this morning. Because someone asked me, "Well, why is Mac Jones popular all of a sudden? Why do we like him all of a sudden?" And I'm sitting there like, "Yo, He's a backup quarterback. He's a local kid from Duval County, and he's a white boy dancing his heart out. Like there is the social media trifecta. The only thing more likable than a backup quarterback in football circles is probably a dope mascot like Datsun DeVille holding up in towels have Ebola situation. And the only thing that's more funny than white guy dancing is a funny baby in the pet video. This is it, bro.
A baby petting a dancing cat. Yeah, that would. I mean, we're not trying to break the. Well, I mean, maybe we are trying to break the internet on this show. But yeah, listen. No, I think the backup quarterback narrative is only a thing because the national media. Yes, I'm blaming the lame stream as I often do on any of my shows, whether it's here or the Student of the Game podcast. Bing. But if they weren't making entirely too much noise about the fact that the Jags threw a minimal investment at a backup quarterback to step in, and I'm not going to say supplant CJ Beathard, but put themselves in a position to pay Mac Jones the money they would have Beathard and craft what could be, and again, no disrespect to Beathard, a better player with some proper TLC. No disrespect to Bill Belichick, obviously, but when you're in a world where you don't have an offensive coordinator coordinating offense, I'm still curious to see how they develop Mac Jones. And but worst case scenario is Trevor gets hurt and you have a backup that's serviceable, kind of like CJ Beathard was. If the best case scenario is you don't need him, but he shows out enough in this and the next training camp to be a nice tradable asset to recover some draft picks they're about to lose from all the stuff on the plane with a kicker. Anyways, so tell me the lie, Travis. Tell me the lie.
It's possible. It is possible. I really hope they don't lose draft picks for the obvious reason because I like the team. But
yeah, I mean, I know I make the joke about replacing the potential lost picks, but like honestly, let's take that out of it. I just want to make a joke, obviously, but
yeah,
this is something where what was it? It was Whitehurst, the guy that was backing up Phillip Rivers for so long, and like, why did you draft him? Eventually, they shift him and got picks back and turned that into something. This is something that I feel like Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke are capable of doing. In that, I trust the Peterson coaching regime to develop this guy a bit, as they did Trevor in 1 year of action, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't put it past Trent Baalke to, in an upcoming draft, turn him into assets. Those are things that fit both those guys.
Well,
don't you agree?
They would have to extend him for obviously, but I can see that being something that's possible, at least on the radar. Because again, I don't think I've heard anyone who disagreed with this take in the media as have the belief that CJ's probably going to be that third guy, and that team is probably going to go with two quarterbacks. And again, they'd have to prove it in training camp and in veteran mini camp and et cetera. But more likely than not, unless Mac just truly is just terrible out there, and I haven't seen that, it's more likely than not that Mac's going to be that second guy, which would result in CJ being on the practice squad and potentially, you can get a small dollar extension out of Mac or something like that. Unless they just truly want to go cheap, if they end up signing Trevor, like that's the other part of that equation that truly we don't know. We know they're trying to get Trevor extended. We don't know if that's going to happen. Most people thought it was already that it already would have been done like now. So they got hung up on structure and things of that nature, reportedly. So it's just, we will see what happens with Trevor, and we will see what that means for the rest of those two guys.
We'll talk more about Trevor in the show too, because I know there's a lot of implications there too, and I'm definitely going to throw some shouts at our friend of the show, Jamal St. Cyr, for him absolutely mic dropping the defense of Trevor getting paid, and for those out there that question this and that and the other thing and aren't just Trevor critics, but just, I'm going to call at this point, if you are over criticizing Trevor as if he's not even worthy to start a franchise, you are a Trevor hater. And you have just completely not accounted for things that are going on that Trevor Lawrence has had to overcome. We'll get to that part later. But to take it back to Mac Jones, I feel like he's somebody that would have a minimal dollar amount, is going to have to rehabilitate his image, which granted, to his credit, the Patriots are doing their part to help with talking cash trash on Belichick publicly. I mean, Tom Brady roast and in the documentary, right?
Number one stream on Netflix, yeah.
You know, I mean, I've never seen a quarterback get as big a break for PR as Mac Jones did. I'll definitely credit that. Listen, we talked about Jerry and Jones. We were going to too, because like Mac Jones.
Jarian, to be clear.
Oh, thank you. No, hey, you're the guy on the ground. That's why you're here, Travis. I'm educated. The Duval devout is now better learned. You're just like an old-time priest. Well, you are the scribe and the source of education on this one, okay?
I've been corrected on that 3 times. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't need to know about your learning curve. See, humble like an old-time priest, too. Look at this guy. Anyway.
Lord.
But I thought you were a DB. I thought humility wasn't supposed to be where you lived. Anyway, we're diving. But so we got Jared, obviously, a lot of talk about development of chemistry with BTJ, obviously a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, let's stick with the theme of big deal. Let's go ahead and transition to talking about some contract things. Like you and I have both, I mean, obviously everyone's talking about Trevor Lawrence, but you and I have both cited the very interesting position that Tyson Campbell's in. He's going to be in a position where he's going to be leveraging for an extension possibly here, and he's doing it while learning a new defense. Credit to the Jacksonville Jaguars on 2 fronts. A, taking advantage of the situation, albeit perhaps not on purpose, but of him having, I'm going to say, a down, air quotes, scenario around him where he wouldn't be as good a performer as he normally would be in learning a new defense. And B, jumping out in front of it, getting ahead of numbers, skyrocketing, not just for quarterbacks, everywhere. Number 2 receivers are getting $30 million. What are we doing, Travis? Like, you know, so getting out in front of it is a smart thing to do, right?
I mean, getting out in front of with all these guys is the smart thing to do. And as much as people, you know, kind of clenched their pearls and everything else with the Ezra Cleveland contract, within a day we started seeing the other guard contracts come out and like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I didn't understand what this looked like, and that's kind of what this is becoming with all the other veteran contracts that are not coming out. So whether it was with Ezra Cleveland, whether we're going to see that same situation with Tyson Campbell, especially being a cornerback, and those are generally a high-priced position, you kind of want to get ahead of it, and it may be a little bit more of a risk, like maybe not a big risk, because Tyson still is someone who played man in college, like at Georgia. Like we knew it coming in that he was a solid man corner, but his only potential opportunity was finding the ball, you know, with his back to the quarterback and just finding the ball when it's in the air, kind of that thing. We still have questions on that piece. I'm not going to pretend that we don't, especially from the few touchdowns and the few big plays that we saw at OTAs. That still is a question mark. But again, these guys don't have pads on. DBs can't jam. They can't hold. They can't cheat. You know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's my DB motto. And
it should be every DB's motto, but go on.
It is what it is. Like it's all holding. It's pass interference on every play, whether or not it gets called.
Sir, listen, I abhor that comment, and I don't hold outside the shoulder pads.
Anyways, but yeah, all that
it's inside. They don't call it, Travis.
There is a risk associated with the contract because obviously that would be giving him some big money coming off of a pretty injured season, and we know it was an injury-filled season, and we also know it's a new scheme that we haven't seen him play for the most part a lot of since college. So there is some risk associated with the team, but nevertheless, I mean, for our resident insider with the Scoops, E. Dilla, you know, he recently stated that the team and the hope is that they'll have this done sometime soon or at least before the season starts. So if that does take place, then awesome for him. But if it doesn't take place then before the season starts, before early preseason, then it starts to get a little dicey because then it kind of comes down to whether injuries happen, what his play look like, et cetera, and you kind of don't know what's going to go on there. It can be a trade at the deadline, or it can be a draft pick, or you know, who knows. The same thing applies for the Trevor Lawrence extension. Again, we already thought that would be done, and it just hasn't been because they just can't seem to come to agreement on overall structure. So hopefully that's done before this season. But again, if it's not, what are we looking at as far as because we know Trent Baalke does not negotiate during the season.
Right. Yeah, the clock is ticking. And granted, like I say it like there's a lot of time, and technically there still kind of is. We're at the beginning of June. I feel like we still have a good month and a half. That's gonna breeze by, but I'm not panicking yet. I would also remind the public at large who tried to diss me on this and then looked like massive idiots doing it. The same thing with the Lamar Jackson contract and the Josh Allen contract apply here. I feel like there's going to be, if precedent in the league hasn't told us, please think about precedent in the house just this offseason, right? They're going to kick the potential for the can to get kicked down the road to stare down and play that game of chicken between the two negotiating parties is something that's obviously literally and figuratively on the table. So I'm not them. The fact they're talking to me is the excellent news. I hear that they're trying to get out in front of the salary explosion that's about to take place. Like, folks, if you're out there complaining about Trevor Lawrence potentially being the top paid quarterback in the league, you're not thinking about who's going to be the top paid quarterback the next year at a much higher clip with a lot less talent, right? So,
and that's the interesting piece. But the other piece that seemed to be interesting to everyone else, and oddly, it wasn't interesting to me at all. Like it was exactly what I expected. Is that Andre Cisco and his representation have not been in negotiations with the team, and it does not seem that the team will extend him before the season starts. But in my head, that actually lined up because the free agent, goodness gracious, the tag for safeties is pretty low, especially in comparison to a cornerback. So if you're going to sign someone, and this is, I believe, T-Wig's point when he was on our show on the last time he visited, he said, he actually did say he would have extended Campbell simply because of the amount of the contract, and that kind of seems to line up with what the team is at least discussing. So they always have the potential to have him under team control for another 1 to 2 years if they chose to tag him once or twice. So it sounds like that will be something that they kind of reassess after the season.
And let's not throw the team under the bus necessarily, Travis. If I'm an Andre Cisco, if I'm just there to get the maximum dollar bills, y'all.
Yeah.
If I wanted to be like Cisco and make the most, that was MC Hammer that made the most expensive video of all time, but Cisco was featured in it, right? Anyways, Wild Wild West shouts. Anyways, what I'm trying to get to is maybe it's their camp that doesn't want to negotiate yet, and they want to hold out for that higher dollar amount. And to your point, I think the most disrespected, somebody clipped this, I think the most disrespected defensive position is safety, especially in a world where the John Lynches, the Troy Palomalus, the Ed Reeds, the collection of elite level Hall of Fame safety play really isn't there. And this isn't disrespecting Andre Cisco, Kyle Hamilton, and the guys that are currently doing it great, because there's some good safeties out there. There just may not be that historically great group. And because the level of play was so high and there is some fall off at the top, the respect given the position is just unacceptable in my mind. Like,
I will push back against that just slightly.
The DB's going to go against the DBs. Bring it. I'm curious.
Well, it's not that the respect is gone from the safety position because of the level of play. More that the respect may be gone from the position because the fear is gone from the position, and that's on the NFL. Okay. That's not on the players. You know what I mean? Like, you can't hit somebody coming across the middle. You can't damage their internal organs for the rest of their life. Like, that's out of the game. They've legislated that out of the game, unfortunately. So that's not on Andre Cisco's fault. That's just Roger Goodell, man.
That's a great point, because I did specifically mention John Lynch and Troy Polamalu, and those are guys that, but even mentioning Ed Reed, those guys like that, not that Ed Reed couldn't hit. Let's not get stupid. I'm not saying that. Did not say that. But Ed Reed was always more famous compared to his elite brethren in Lynch and Polamalu.
Yeah.
He was more better known that, like, he could play free safety too, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I got you.
And that's why I put him as an element of grace now. Now that everybody has to have the element of grace there too, there's still not that respect given. And I'd make the argument, though your point is absolutely true, you need an even more skilled safety now to account for those rule changes, and you're not paying that guy. There's a very real chance that a team that has an Andre Cisco, or I'll take it to the Ravens with Hamilton, that's fine, could lose a guy that has the skill necessary to make that adjustment because they're not respecting it enough, whether the rule changes at full or not. I'm saying for if you want to look on defense for a group that's as, I'm going to say disrespected again because I can't think of it. Undervalued. If you're looking for the equivalent, the counterpart on defense to what people are saying about the running back position, and rightly so, I'm going full Joel Klatt on you, and rightly so, I think it's a safety. I think it's a safety, man. You know.
And I don't disagree with you. At the end of the day, I don't disagree with you. But again, if you can find that elite safety who has that potential to play free, who has that potential to come down and knock some heads ever so often, who has that potential to potentially even be in the slot on occasion, yeah, man, you can't go wrong with that guy that you can use like a chess piece, especially with Ryan Nielsen back there.
This guy gets it.
Yeah, understood it. But also, I wanted to make sure I don't forget to mention, hey, man, Evan Engram. He's had a different type of camp. And I want to make sure I point out the fact that he's had a good camp. Yes, he's had a different type of OTAs, though, because in the way that they've been using him. And we've seen back in 2022 where it was a lot of drag routes. It was a boatload of just running 3 yards off the line of scrimmage left and right and beating people with speed. But it was
there was a lot of pencil whipping openings and a lot of, I don't want to say nursing Trevor, but nursing Trevor like he was still a rookie when he was a sophomore player who was previously playing for arguably the worst NFL coaching run in NFL history, certainly in Jaguars history, right? So,
but in OTAs, it's been a lot more vertical routes. It's been a lot more down the seams. It's been a lot more down the sidelines. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it's just a small thing to note down. Like the vast majority, and I mean the vast majority of his catches have all been those 15 to 20 yard varieties. That to me is something that's like,
okay. Because you got other bodies that you could put in at either fullback or tight end if you're running either an ace or some sort of four form or an I set or something. The Brandon Stranges of the world can do that role. You're utilizing Engram. Not to say the dude can't hit a little bit, but you're utilizing Evan Engram and accounting for the height you lost with Calvin Ridley. It's almost as if Gabe Davis wasn't meant to replace Calvin Ridley, but more that they're trying to replace him in the aggregate. If only two great minds didn't try to tell the nation this already.
So weird. Yeah. Oh, and speaking of Brendan Strange, he's had a good OTAs too. Again, I don't want to just start naming all the pass catchers and say everyone's having a great time. But no, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. We brought Brendan Strange in, and everyone had questions about how he was going to be used, about the value of using that second round of draft pick on a tight end. And he basically became a very good blocker in 2023. Great. And then he got injured, and the team stopped using 13 personnel as much. Ugh, that stinks. Well, now we know he can block. At bare minimum, we know that. And now we're seeing him potentially take a step forward as far as his catching, as far as his route running, as far as being used in that intermediate level of the offense. And again, that's my takeaway for him is I hope that he can challenge for that backup tight end spot. And I know people are, well, he's a second round draft pick. You're hoping that he challenges for a second round for a backup tight end spot. Well, the Jaguars use tight end a lot. I mean, I'm not top of the league a lot, but yeah, because they're mostly a 3 wide receiver sets, generally speaking, but they want to make ETN great again. They're going to use a lot more 2 tight end sets. Mega, come on, baby. So that's again, they already showed us last year what they want to be. Is whether or not they have the personnel to do it. So now they have the personnel to do it, and I'm looking forward to making that man great.
Let me tell you this. You're making a mega good point by making a good point about Mega. Listen, I'd also add this too. And in this development by Brandon Strange, I'm going to call it here on the show. It's not that I don't like the guy. I've talked to the guy in person. He was very gracious to me. This is purely from a football analysis standpoint. You probably already know where I'm going, but the role that I believe they wanted Tank Bigsby to play will also be played by one Brandon Strange. Don't be surprised if you've seen him lined up in that backfield playing that second running back, fullback role on occasion in some sets. I think that was meant for Bigsby. They may do it with Darnus there. I'm blanking on his last. Darnus
Johnson. Yeah.
How do you forget that last name? I think it's because you see, there's part of my brain that resists liking him because he went to USF. That's a me problem. No, shouts to him. I actually interviewed him a little bit at the Shrine Bowl and made a joke about that. He was incredibly gracious. But the short on that is, I believe Tank Bigsby's days are numbered. I don't know.
I think the team wants him to be the guy. They really want him to be the guy. I mean, obviously the actions have shown that. The depth chart has shown that. Not the depth chart this year, but the depth chart in the way that they've been using them has shown that.
Sure.
Obviously, the guarantees in Dearness's contract have all everything has shown that they want Tank Bigsby. They still are begging for him to be the guy, and he's going to have every single opportunity under the sun to lose that backup running back spot. But at the current moment in time, it feels like it is still his, and that is odd to me because I'm a competition guy. You have to earn everything. Everybody has to earn it all, and I think that that's what's going to happen on the defensive side. I just have questions about, hey man, no, let them compete. Let Dearness compete with Tank, and you just figure out however this lands. And if it's egg on your face, it's egg on your face, but the team is better because of it. If that makes sense.
I hear that. Here's the problem. It's kind of like a movie that's a sequel to a good franchise that's bad. Okay. The good franchise, we want you to be successful and be another good sequel. But if that sequel is so bad that it slaps you in the face and reminds you that it ain't doing the job, that's what I think the play currently has delivered. Tank, to your point, because they're giving him enough of a chance to turn it around, and they're saying, hey, maybe we could develop you and all that. I appreciate that you have that writing on the wall and you are acknowledging that. I agree with it. I'm predicting that does not last through the season. Remember, we're still in June. And maybe he'll even make it through camp. There's not a guarantee of that either, because remember, we're still in June, right? So
that's the question.
That competition's still coming, is what I'm telling you, Travis.
He's had some highs and he's had lows. He's had, like, I believe it was at least 2 to 3 overall drops in all of OTAs. But he's also had a few highlight plays. I got to give him credit for that. Like, he had the great play against Chad Muma in OTA Day 7. Everybody started memeing Muma playing Mortal Kombat and all these other things because of that. But that was the first time we've really heard much from Chad Muma since the Beyond Robinson, Atlanta Falcons juke last year. So it sucks for him because he actually had a good day also, just to keep it 100. It is what it is. Everyone has that one play on film that they wish was not on film. I'm sorry, man. The film is life.
You bring up Chad Muma. That's a whole other set of mixed feelings for the Duval Devout. That's all I'm saying. So
yeah. But again, I hope he is also someone that they're able to get a good use of, whether that's special teams or whether that's at the linebacker position, because he's solid in coverage, and this is again a man defense. We need someone like that, whether it's him or whether it's Ventrell Miller, etc.
Yeah, well, and I'll put the point on this with what I'm saying about Tank. Again, I don't think he's necessarily a bad player. What I am saying is these depth charts are getting real tight, and it's still very plausible to play yourself out of these positions, especially if you keep putting the ball on the ground at this point.
He'll be on a short leash, but I also don't know how short. Because I also don't think, like, if last year was truly a historically bad year for him, in my personal opinion. If you're talking about a rookie running back coming into the league and not even having a starting role, just having I don't even know what his stat numbers look like. I would have to figure that out after the pod. But it wasn't a crazy amount as far as his snap share, and to have as many turnovers as he had in such a limited amount of touches, it felt historically bad. And I don't know if that's what the level is. If that's the bar, just don't be historically bad, and we'll continue giving you this opportunity. Or does he actually have to be good? Because those are two different things. I don't know. We'll see.
And again, I as much as I'm making my prediction and calling what I'm seeing, I'm not going to sit here and rule out the possibility that he bounces back and asserts himself. Goodness goes, the Duval Devout and Travis Etienne could afford to have that depth, to not overuse Etienne, to have him late in the season when you're making that push in the playoffs, or to try to make the playoffs, I should say. We'll get into predictions and stuff at another juncture. Let's put it this way. We're scheduled on the Student of the Game to talk a little Jacksonville Jaguars and make that prediction. I believe it's sometime in August. Yes. So, let's let camp transpire and all that other stuff. There's certain divisions that I'm getting out of the way early, like the AFC West and the NFC West, perhaps that'll be less competitive overall. I said it. But the South, once again, is just a giant question mark for the AFC. I'd say the same thing for the NFC South too. That's a separate question. Man, listen, we even had another topic we didn't even get into. We're going to save next week. But listen, remember, folks, mega is a thing. And, let's make NTN great again. There you go. Travis Holmes, tell the world where you can be found, my guy.
You can find me and all of my writings covering the Jacksonville Jaguars on bigcatcountry.com. You can find me on all the socials, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., Twitch. Travis D. Holmes. You can find me here every Friday, wherever you catch your podcast, 11 a.m., the Duval Diva Jaguars podcast. And finally, you can catch me with the South Florida Tribunes, Inside the Pigskin, the Sports Exchange, pundits, all of their list of podcasts. We Inside the Pigskin is on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Sir, where can you be found?
Listen, an honor, joy, and privilege to do the thing with you, my personal champion. Thank you again, Travis D. Holmes. Thanks again to the Hello Podcast for checking in the comments as well. You can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram, and Threads is the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Check out my writings with the Jaguar Report, the 3-point conversion, and the Black and Gold Banneret, as well as the Student of the Game podcast, 9 p.m. Eastern, on one of these and the other very same channels that you consume the Duval Dive. Much the same too on Spotify, the Student of the Game podcast channel and chain there. And hey, don't forget the 3-point conversion iHeartRadio network also plays this, as well as A7B and Sports. We're a lot of places.
And Den Media Group. Come on.
Den Media Group. Thank you. Listen, no shouts to Drew Willingham and Sertova Media either as well. Like, we're going down the list. Get it while it's free, says Travis Holmes. Anyways, another great time, another fun episode. And hey, folks, I'm serious. Look closely. Monday, we're going to be at camp. You better bet that on both of our various social medias, we'll have things to say and put out there from the first day of mini camp. I know, Travis, you'll be there for the duration, so look out there too.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Yeah, let's go.
So yeah, it's a good early week for you Duval devout if you're following the Duval Dive. And if you're not, like Travis said earlier, get a hold of your life. Anyways, until next time, friends, class dismissed.